How to Speak English Fluently at Work English podcast for daily life. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Languages Academy. I'm Kim, and today we are going to discuss one of the most practical and valuable topics for English learners around the world: how to speak English fluently at work. For many professionals, English is no longer just a language that they study in school. It has become an essential tool for communication, collaboration, career advancement, and professional success. Whether you work in business, education, technology, healthcare, engineering, customer service, or any other industry, there is a good chance that English plays an important role in your daily activities. However, many learners face a common problem. They can understand English reasonably well, they can read reports and emails, and they can even write messages with confidence. Yet when they need to speak English during meetings, presentations, interviews, or workplace discussions, they suddenly become nervous and unsure of themselves. Today, Layla and Celia will explore this challenge in depth. They will discuss practical strategies, common mistakes, confidence-building techniques, and real workplace situations that can help English learners become more fluent and professional speakers. So, let's begin.
Hi, Celia. I wanted to ask you something because I've noticed that many people who study English for years still struggle when they need to speak English at work. Why do you think that happens?
That's a very interesting question, and I think the answer is more psychological than linguistic. In many cases, people actually know much more English than they believe they do. But the workplace creates additional pressure because they are afraid of being judged by colleagues, supervisors, clients, or managers.
That's true. When people speak with friends, they usually feel relaxed. But when they speak during a business meeting, they suddenly become much more self-conscious.
Exactly. The workplace introduces a different level of responsibility. People feel that their professional reputation is connected to their language skills, so every small mistake seems much more significant than it really is.
I remember feeling that way during my first international job. Before every meeting, I would spend a lot of time preparing sentences in my head because I was afraid of sounding unprofessional.
I had a similar experience. During my first year working with international colleagues, I often rehearsed entire conversations before meetings. Ironically, that strategy sometimes made communication more difficult because I became so focused on memorized sentences that I stopped listening naturally.
That's fascinating because many learners believe that preparing every sentence will help them sound more fluent.
Preparation is useful, but over-preparation can sometimes create anxiety. Real conversations are dynamic. People ask unexpected questions, introduce new ideas, and change topics. If you're only prepared for one specific conversation, you may struggle when the discussion moves in a different direction.
So what should learners focus on instead?
They should focus on communication rather than perfection. The goal of a workplace conversation is not to demonstrate perfect grammar. The goal is to exchange ideas, solve problems, share information, and collaborate effectively.
That's a powerful distinction because many people confuse language learning with communication.
Exactly. You can communicate successfully even if your English is not perfect, and surprisingly, many native speakers make grammatical mistakes every day without affecting their ability to communicate.
Let's talk about meetings because I think that's one of the situations that makes English learners the most nervous.
I completely agree. Meetings can feel intimidating because there are often multiple participants, time pressure, and expectations regarding professional contributions.
What advice would you give someone who feels nervous before speaking during a meeting?
First, prepare key vocabulary related to the meeting topic. If the discussion is about budgets, learn financial vocabulary. If it's about project management, review project-related terminology. Familiarity creates confidence.
That makes sense because uncertainty about vocabulary can increase anxiety.
Exactly. Second, don't try to speak for 5 minutes if you're uncomfortable. Start by contributing short comments.
Can you give an example?
Of course. Instead of trying to deliver a long explanation, you could simply say, I agree with that suggestion. I think that's a good point.
Could you clarify that for me? I'd like to add something to the discussion. These short contributions help you become an active participant without overwhelming yourself.
I really like that approach because it transforms speaking from a huge challenge into a manageable task.
That's exactly the idea. Confidence grows through repeated success. Every time you contribute successfully, your brain becomes more comfortable with workplace communication.
Did you notice this happening in your own career?
Absolutely. In the beginning, I would speak perhaps once during an entire meeting. Then I gradually became comfortable contributing several times. Eventually, speaking during meetings felt completely natural.
Another challenge many professionals face is giving presentations in English.
Yes, and presentations often combine multiple fears at once: public speaking, language mistakes, and professional evaluation.
That sounds intimidating.
It can be, but presentations become much easier when you understand that audiences generally want you to succeed. Most people are not looking for mistakes. They are interested in your information.
That's a helpful perspective because many presenters imagine that everyone is analyzing their grammar.
Exactly. In reality, audiences care more about clarity, structure, and useful content.
So how can learners improve their presentation skills?
Practice aloud. That's one of the most important things. Many people prepare presentations silently, but speaking aloud reveals pronunciation issues, awkward phrasing, and areas where transitions need improvement.
I completely agree. Reading silently and speaking aloud are very different experiences.
They are. Additionally, presenters should learn useful transition phrases. For example,
Let's move on to the next point. Now I'd like to discuss, as you can see from this chart, to summarize what we've discussed so far. These phrases make presentations sound smoother and more professional.
Many people ask how they can improve their workplace English outside of work. What would you recommend?
consistent exposure. Listen to English every day, especially professional English.
Such as podcasts?
Podcasts are excellent. Business podcasts, interviews, TED-style talks, conference presentations, and workplace discussions all expose learners to natural professional communication.
What about speaking practice?
Speaking practice is essential. One mistake many learners make is spending 90% of their time consuming English and only 10% producing it.
That's very true.
Fluency develops through output. Reading and listening provide input, but speaking develops automaticity.
Automaticity?
The ability to speak without translating every sentence mentally. Fluent speakers don't build every sentence word by word. They access language automatically through repeated use.
So speaking regularly trains the brain to respond more naturally.
Exactly. That's why even 10 minutes of speaking practice every day can be more valuable than several hours of passive study.
Let's discuss another important situation, speaking with managers or clients.
That's where professionalism becomes especially important.
Many learners worry that they sound either too informal or too formal.
That's common. Professional communication requires balance. You want to sound respectful without sounding robotic.
Can you give examples?
Certainly. Instead of saying, "I don't understand," you could say, "Could you please clarify that point?" Instead of saying, "You're wrong," you could say, "I see your perspective, although I have a slightly different view."
Those expressions sound much more professional and collaborative.
Exactly. Workplace communication is often about maintaining positive relationships while discussing potentially difficult topics.
That's an important skill in any language.
Absolutely. Strong communication skills can influence promotions, leadership opportunities, client relationships, and overall career growth.
What a fascinating discussion. As we've learned today, speaking English fluently at work is not about using the most advanced vocabulary or speaking without mistakes. It is about communicating clearly, participating confidently, listening actively, and improving consistently over time. Remember that every meeting, every conversation, every presentation, and every workplace interaction is an opportunity to strengthen your fluency and professional communication skills. Keep practicing, keep learning, and most importantly, keep speaking English every day. Thank you for listening to English Podcast for Daily Life English, and we'll see you in our next episode.